Welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about 10 ways to use gesso. I had problems with the word. I had problems with the stuff. I didn't like it when I first started using it. I didn't even think I needed to use it. So I thought that there might be other people that are in the same boat that I was in. And so I'd like to demonstrate 10 ways, 10 ways that we can get comfy with gesso. Now I'm going to put some lotion on my hands, and one of the reasons why is because gesso is drying and I'm a mess, so then I have a hard time getting it off my hands. So that helps me to, when I wash up, to get it off, and also it doesn't dry out my hands quite so much. Alright, so the first way is I use it for stiffening wimpy paper. And this is my theocratic journal, and sometimes I will fill it all up with words, but then I'll have these big open spaces. So I will come in and want to do maybe come back later and do some artwork there. And in preparation for that, I will stiffen this paper. And as you can see, that it's just notebook paper. And I can, as I have done, I can just stick a sticky note over it if I wanted to do, but the real idea is that I want to prep it for some kind of artwork later. So I will come in and actually, one of my favorite tools with gesso is to use the credit card or key card, and I can get that right in there along this line if I want to, and smooth it down. And now it's not going to bleed through the other side where I may have writing on the other side that I want to preserve, that kind of deal. And we'll talk a little bit more about bleed through later. Number 2 is to glue pages together. And here is another journal that I'm working on, and this is an old book, and you can see that I have torn out about 3 pages, and I have these 2 pages here that I want to glue together. So I will just use some gesso, and I'm not particular about what kind. Maybe some people are, but I think you should just use what you got. So again, I like the key card for spreading. And I will kind of make a little puddle. I don't necessarily want to put it right in the crack, because that's going to make for a thicker book, and I'm already going to thicken it up other ways. But I do like to pile it up toward this end, so that when I take the back side of the key card, I can use, because there's the line of gesso there, so I can just use the key card to smooth it down. And then I can peel that up and see if it's going to stick. Is it going to stick on the corners? It looks like it is, but it also has a tendency to roll. So I will take some clips and I will clip it. That's not a clip. I will take some clips and clip it down, and the weight of the clip will keep it straight, and then I'll set it off to dry. And then of course I can cover that all up with gesso later, but I like to do it in a 2-step process and let it dry in between. I got a number of journals going, so I can just, do 1 page at a time while I'm prepping a journal. Okay, the third way is to highlight. And here's a scrappy piece of printed something out, and I've sprayed some stuff on it, and it was kind of busy, so I may want to highlight something, right? So you just take a little fingerful of gesso and you just highlight something. Here's another example where you've done your artsy circles, and you just take your finger and add a little bit of gesso as a highlight, white highlight. And here is a fingerprint. It's also done as a highlight. So gesso is good for that. Number 4 is conceal. Sometimes, and I love junk mail, I love mail, and so I got this wonderful some stencils in this envelope from Germany, and there's my way of concealing. There's my address under there, and I just took a fingerful of gesso and so now when I throw this into my stash box, then I'm going to be able to use it without forgetting that I put my vital information on there. Well, now I can use it any way I want. And also, here's the back side of a journal page, and if I wanted to conceal what is going on here, and so I can do something else on this journal page, I could gesso that too. Another way is just making some, creating a writing surface. So what I did with this is, of course, you can almost see the stamp of the key card, where I just went and did something like that, and then once it's dry, I can write right on top of it. You know, I put that somewhere where I don't get them and make a mess. Okay. Another way is to prevent bleed. So here's another piece of junk. This is a note that I wrote on the back, and I'm converting to using permanent pens only because of this, but some of my junk pieces might still have regular pen ink on them, and so they have a tendency to bleed through, especially if I flip it over and start doing some kind of artwork. I stamp something, I get it wet with watercolor or something like that, and it will bleed through. So I just used a light coating of gesso, so that now if I stamp something on this, or if I use some wet watercolor, or I water down some acrylic paint, then I can be comfortable knowing that this stuff on the back is not going to bleed through. I can also just flip it over and tear this all up and whatever, and I've again stiffened up this wimpy paper, so it's good for a lot of applications. Number 6 is start again. We all make mistakes, and so we sometimes want to start again. And so the wonderful thing about gesso is it gives you another life. You get to go and try again. So this piece of paper, I had done some doodly words, and I have then covered that with some gesso, and I could do the same on this side, and I could start again. Another way is that I had made this book paper, this watercolor book paper, and then I went and stamped on it with my jelly plate. Well, my jelly plate had too much paint on it, and I didn't like the way that it turned out. So I may not want to rip it. I may just want to cover it up and then throw it into my stash. Or I might actually have an idea that I want to use it for. And so you see, when you can do your thing, and I got a little too much, so easy to take off. And I could grab another key card and then just jazz it up a little bit and not worry about spilling any more on there. So now I've created a lovely texture, and that jelly plate mess up has become something interesting and fun to use. So again, you could start all over. Oh, where did I put that? I don't get into it again. And the next little bit, and I've lost count, but y'all can count for me, is to stencil or add a texture. And you saw that there's lots of texture in all these things that I'm showing you. So that's a wonderful choice. Gesso does that, you know, adds texture just automatically. But let's see if I can get a smooth surface here. Okay, there you go. Now this is a really bumpy piece of envelope again, and you can see that there's some tape on it. Well, gesso sticks to just about everything, and the wonderful choice about when you tape got tape, or you paint over tape, is that you can always come back and remove a little bit. So I'm going to try. And, you know, some of this is going to bleed because of the fact that I'm choosing to do it on a bumpy sheet. But there's this wonderful idea here. And if I don't mind about that too much, then I get this wonderful texture going on. And that did bleed quite a bit. And you can thicken these things up by adding in thicker mediums, modeling paste, things like that. But I'm pretty happy with the idea because this would be somewhat of a base, and then I would build more layers, more colors on top of that. And that gives you an idea of how that works. All right. Pink. So we come to, all right, then we come to using it as a neutralizer. And here someone has written me a card and put my name on it, and I want to see it, but I don't want the whole, I don't want all of it. I don't want to shout my name out, but so I just took some finger dots of gesso there to neutralize it, and then I would throw that into my stash, and somehow I might use it. And then the last way is how to prepare a surface for artwork. And so I'm interested in building up something in this particular for this week, which we are going to be using gesso in the second prompt of January. And that is for the Documented Life project. Boop-a-doop-boo. So I wanted to add a little bit of gesso in this area. I don't want to cover the whole page. I like to use gesso as a resist if possible. And also, so I'm going to just kind of move it into here and allow for some heavy painting around the edges. So I'm just going to be putting it in the middle. And of course, I do like the squeeze bottle, and I used to have a big tub. I think Artist Loft out of Michael's made a big tub, and I was constantly having to dip in. I didn't really appreciate that as much as I appreciate the squeeze bottle. The problem with the Liquitex bottle is if you don't clean this little hinge, you will break your lid, and you'll be constantly wondering, where's my lid? So if that happens, you can always, or if you have a tub and you're saying, hey, I want a squeeze bottle, you can use an old squeeze bottle. I like the smaller one as opposed to the giant Heinz ketchup one because, or even a lotion bottle will work too, because I'm wanting something that's a little easier to handle. This big thing filled with gesso would be very heavy and could be rough on your wrists, especially if you're using it a lot. So, enough of that. So here we go. I've got some gesso already on these key cards, so I'm just going to wipe them off. And I especially like to use the little bits of gesso that are left on the key cards around the edges. It kind of softens things up a little bit. And less is more. You can always add more. As you noticed, it was a little bit more difficult to take it off. And I am focusing on texture here because I really would like to have some textury bits going on. And so I'm leaving puddles. I'm leaving lines of it. And I'm interested in getting it in the crack this time. I've heard, but not actually experienced for myself, that gesso can keep bleed from happening in the seam. I've not ever heavily worked the seam of a page, so I've always been really careful to get away from it or stay away from it. So we're going to give that a whirl this time. So I've got this going on, and another thing I love about the key card in the gesso is that you can come back and add little bits of texture. You can add lines of texture with the key card. Now, and I guess I would also like to show you, and I don't know how long I'm running now, but anyway, there you go. And I hope that you can maybe get a little glimpse of some of that texture, and see that I have left the corners of the page pretty much uncovered. So there you go. Let me grab a piece of paper. Okay, so this is a little piece of book paper, and I demonstrated the key card an awful lot, but let's take a look at what the brush does. And what I like about the brush is if you start out with a clean, dry brush, you get a lot of brush strokes, and you can really just lightly cover those things, right? Just lightly. You can get the look of the book paper, and you can get the words, but the words are not as prominent. You can control how much. When you have a big goopy amount on your brush, then you're going to get a solid, solid white, and very little of that book page is going to show up. Let me grab this. And I apologize if this is running really long for y'all. I know your time is valuable. All right, so here we have this page that I had glued together with gesso, and now I'm going to just cover up just ever so slightly. And really, for me, because I'm not real sure what I'm going to do with this journal, I'm just putting a light coat. Then I can always add more later. So I'm putting a light coat to stiffen the pages up, distinguish the pages that are going to be art and the ones that are going to just be glued together. And here is what the brush does. Now I feel like I may have overworked that a little bit. I would like a little bit more texture, so I'm just going to drop some more on there, and I'm just going to come along and just be fiddly with it. You can kind of get some interesting shapes and textures just by moving the brush around, and light and heavy touches. So you can see the difference between what the key card can do and what the brush can do. And this is really a wonderful de-stressor if you're having a rough day or you're trying to get yourself into the art frame of mind. You can just mess around with a little gesso, having a journal that you are working on prepping at the same time that you're working on journals in producing art. This will allow you to loosen up. And so I hope y'all enjoyed this little primer on gesso, and I sure appreciate that y'all watch, and I so appreciate when y'all let me know how much you enjoy it. That is, it just makes me feel so good. And obviously we know that we are learning, because we are, what we learn we like to share and we like to teach. So anything that y'all would love to share and teach me, I would appreciate. Thank you so much, y'all. Bye-bye.